beautiful East Tennessee in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. You are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show, and I do appreciate you spending your time with me today. And I have a really special treat. After being on hiatus for 4 weeks with a major computer meltdown, and then I just decided, well, I'll take another extra week off. I wanted to come back and do something a little fun. And when I think of fun, I definitely think of my guests tonight, which are David and Mary Wilamowski. Let's bring them up here, and you guys may know them as the hosts of Liberty Late Night, which is a really fun show. So welcome to the show, guys. I appreciate you being here. Of course, Mary is the one without the facial hair. David is the one with. So you guys, of course, you do Liberty Late Night. And how long have you guys been doing that show? It's been a year or two now? All right.
Yes. Can hear them
okay.
Now.
Yay. Awesome.
Yay, Athena, thank you. So you guys, of course, are the co-hosts of Liberty Late Night. And how did you get into libertarianism? Again, talk real good about that.
They're asking I think somebody has to turn us up a little bit too, but
okay, I'll do that while you're talking.
Okay. What I said before was Ron Paul, 2011. I first discovered Ron Paul. I didn't know what libertarian was or that it existed, and I read his book Liberty Defined, and that just pretty much matched everything I believed. I just didn't know it was a actual philosophy. So I got really active into it. I went onto meetup.com. I searched my area, got involved, and from there on, the Facebook kind of came secondly, where I started finding all the meme pages, and Liberty Memes was always my favorite page because they matched my flavor of libertarianism, pretty much preached everything that I said, plus just the wide variety and the they weren't afraid to rip on anything. It was kind of exciting.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the first Liberty Memes meme I ever remember seeing and going like, wow, who are these people? Was the one that you probably know which one. It was the play stupid game, win stupid prizes with that is like the hottest meme I have. Like only some of the Jesus memes come close to that so far. Like the one with the centurion where he's like, Jesus is saying thank you for your service to the centurion. That's probably the only other one that really emblazoned in my mind. But Mary, how about you? Were you kind of apolitical like a lot of women are and listening to what Dave was saying and it kind of made sense, or were you really looking for something as well?
I mean, I felt the frustration, but I was like, big statist and just, my flag and all that jazz. Yeah. But a lot of it, I didn't jive. I always said there's no perfect candidate. There's no, like, why do we have to pick between one or the other? Like, it wasn't, I didn't feel comfortable, with anybody. And I found out why. It was because, I'm libertarian and none of the other people matched anything that I believed in. Once we heard Ron Paul, it was life changing. For me, it would just, oh my gosh, how long I had gone with my head buried in the sand, and I could not believe it. I wanted those years back.
Yeah. I think for me, I heard Ron Paul a little bit in the debates mostly. But I was such a neocon that I was just like, wow, this guy's great on, domestic spending issues, but that foreign policy needs some work, right? Like we have to be over there. Like I couldn't, yeah. I thought he was insane. Yeah. And like, well, we can't legalize all the drugs, right? So it took me, I had to come in through a different route. Let's say that. But what do you guys feel, so since we're on the subject, about, a lot of libertarians lately, I've seen hating on Ron Paul as, some kind of, well, he was a Republican, or, he's a racist, what the things that people say. I often think, like, no matter what you feel about the man personally, right? You may not like him, and that's okay. But you can't deny the influence on people that he's had bringing to libertarianism. Whether he's a Republican or not makes no difference in my mind. But what do you guys think about all that kind of Ron Paul hate that's come out lately and why that might be?
I don't know why it's coming out lately. I guess people, the whole "you're not a real libertarian" just kind of crystallizes the further we go. We're all perfect ANCAPs now. But I think Ron Paul was exactly what I needed him to be, from where I was at. He was that perfect stepping stone, and very just out of the box compared to any other Republican. Even though he was running as a Republican, he was a congressman. He was involved in politics. He's not going to tell you not to vote, and
But he was so about just teaching and spreading the message, not necessarily becoming the president. When we went to see him in Pittsburgh, we found out he was coming, and it's only 2 hours. We were like, we have to go. This is once in a lifetime, probably. And it was one of the best things ever. I mean, besides my kids and marrying Dave, but it was amazing. So I don't know. I don't know why the hate.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot more lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to wonder if it's, the party for me. I'm not involved in the party anymore. So, and one of the reasons is I feel like they've really lost their way. They're more about getting votes now. Many of them, not everyone in the party, but yeah, many people are not about using that platform to actually teach people, but they want to gain political power like the others. And so to me, I see no difference in anyone who wants to use force against you. And there are a lot of libertarian party members who don't understand that there's a philosophy attached or don't care about the philosophy. And therefore, you get these, I like to call them oorah libertarians, these Stapletonians who are all, they want the free market, and they want, maybe they want, the gays to be able to marry because they don't care about that. But when it comes to their military, oorah, damn it, we're going to control the world. We need to be the biggest kid on the block. And so I think that's it's disheartening, and it's a hard battle to fight. And then people blame you for being a purist. And I'm like, well, okay, all right, I am then. I don't care. There are two things that I care about. One is violence and the ethical use of force and violence on people, and two, self-ownership. And that's complete. And if you don't believe, or you believe that there's a little bit, like I can't, I can put a little bit of government in your life, right? A little bit of taxes. We need taxes for a few things. Then I'm sorry, that's not libertarian. So I don't know where to go with that. If you want to call that purity test, then okay, that's the purity test, and you failed. Sorry.
We're supposed to be the party of principles, kind of, and it's like once you start, giving up a little bit just for a little popularity or to reach a certain group, then
you're just you're just
another
like the
party.
others. Yeah.
Right. It's you're on the slide, the big slide downhill, because I know there are a lot of people, and people are going to get mad at me, but doing some good stuff in the party. And that's what I always try to tell people is, because I don't vote, and I think the best way to handle the system is to basically ignore it and try and nullify it in your life and minimize it as much as possible. But they're always, well, like, we did this, we got civil asset forfeiture, we got it taken out of Wyoming or something. Well, great. There are good things you can do through the political process. But as far as that being the end goal, ending the state is always the goal of libertarianism. Like states are unethical. So there's no like, well, we just need a little bit of this or a little bit of that. I don't get that sort of thinking. And I think maybe it's just where I'm at on the spectrum right now. But on the spectrum, it's funny.
We're all kind of on the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe, like, maybe everybody is probably on the autism spectrum, like everybody in the world to a certain yeah. And so I think I find myself that I hyper focus on things, and I sometimes can't let go of something like that I'm hyper focused on. It takes me a lot to like move my attention. So I wonder sometimes if that's the case.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah, no. That's
So
all right.
right. Now, what would you label yourselves as now? Because I know when I was on your show, it's probably been 6 months ago now. I'm not sure. It's a while back.
Yeah.
You guys had said, I don't know, it seemed like you were just becoming anarchists, or maybe you were feeling it out a little, or are still kind of timid about it? I'm not sure. Where would you say you are, and what would you call yourselves?
I think I hit ANCAP pretty quick. Mary was a little slow to accept it all, and she still has a lot of questions. But I mean,
I'm there,
as we all
but
do,
it's
like
I have questions.
everybody wants it all answered out. Like what is your world exactly going to lead to, and how's it going to look, and what's it going to be like? And it's like, I don't know, but it's not going to be what we're doing right now, and this ain't working. A lot of people are dying.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's
and I
try
think
something else.
I think it's good that I mean, Dave and I like to have talks just about stuff. We'll sit on the couch and I'm like, okay, so devil's advocate, and then I ask a question just because I want to learn, and I like listening to him talk. But he's smart, you know.
Usually I'm just working it out.
It's like nerdy. It's nerdy foreplay.
That's what Dave likes.
Brain.
Dave likes so much about, like the nap and everything, and this whole philosophy is just that you apply. It's so mathematical to him, it's like you just apply these principles to a situation and then you get an answer. It's like 2 + 2 will always be 4, no matter what. So
it's not a whole lot of gray areas, but there are gray areas.
There are technical issues and areas, but I think you're right in that libertarianism is basically simple. Like it is, non-aggression or the ethical use of force on someone, and also self-ownership, complete self-ownership. So I think those two things, or personal autonomy, if you want to call it that, or some people don't like the term self-ownership, but those two things are really simple. Applying them to life sometimes, because that's the nature of life, is that no philosophy is going to cover every single exact issue, and that we don't know how everything will work out, because there's something called innovation, and then without the influences, the undue influence of the state on people and how they act, the economics of that, I don't know how everything's going to look, just like you said, and we don't have to. What we have to know is that it's wrong to force people to do something, and no excuse is going to make that okay.
Right.
So I think that's what people don't really get. And for me, I like that you said to Dave, it's mathematical, right? It's very the technical side of it, and I think which is generally sort of the male sort of thing, where you're like, these are the answers, here it is, there you go.
I have a set of rules I can operate by, thank you.
Right. Yeah. And so being a woman, though, Mary, I think that's what women really can bring to libertarianism, is sort of the women in general. We're not speaking necessarily every individual, but that women can really bring sort of the community aspect of libertarianism, how we might want to do things. I've noticed that in raising children, that often I'll have the understanding side of like, well, this might be why he did that. Like, no, your son's not an idiot. This is maybe what he was thinking, or just the incentives of people. So I think it's great that you're asking those questions, because I don't know that there's, we have Mary Ruort and some other, she's one of the bigger names in libertarianism that has written a wonderful book about, what the world the world set free in our lifetime. What is the name of that book? Is that I forget what her book is called right now. It's on my reading list. But there's not a whole lot of examples of a lot of mainstream libertarian women, and what you usually get is sort of this left idea that women are all about the feels and can't put their feelings beneath their logic, and I don't think that's true at all. I think that what we have to do is a better job of appealing to women in that. So what are your thoughts on what women might be able to bring to libertarian community as we move forward?
Oh boy, good question. I don't know. I mean, just to be able to think for themselves, and that's a really good question. I'm like,
what about the children? Everybody's always like,
right.
What about well, here's how this philosophy can help the sick and the downtrodden and the children and stuff like that, and how people will be safer because of enacting things that we believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas we're just like, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, deal with everything else.
Right.
Right. And then maybe taking that apart a little bit, because it's the way I feel about it is a lot of women are concerned about what would happen to marginalized people in society, like children. They don't really have much of a voice on their own
Right.
in society. So I don't think women in general, are wrong to be concerned about that. But the answers can't be, well, if we just steal a little from these people, then we can take care of these people who don't have much of a
Right.
voice. And I think that's where a lot of women sometimes go, like, I can't be a libertarian because I could never end the welfare state because women and children need this help.
Yeah.
And
No.
so not recognizing how the welfare state actually harms women and children and
Right.
families and right, men. It harms everyone. So
Yeah. I think
that's
that it kind of makes me think of when I had, my kids and stuff, and people say, it takes a village and whatever. And, but I feel like, when I think about, Ancapistan, let's say, that, we're all going to leave
I prefer
each other.
Appalachia. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We're all going to be there to
I think there'll be more community.
Yeah, there'll be, to,
gotta take care of
help each
yourself.
other, look out for each other, not bother each other. But if someone's down or needs, something, or just in any kind of way, just as a family almost, that we would be there, as a community to help raise people up. And I don't mean just financially, but I think a lot of people focus on that, where they say, like, oh yeah, we can't end the welfare state because so-and-so won't have any food. And, I'm not one of the collapsitarian people who wants to just shut it all down right now, because that would be really scary. But I do think we should start phasing things out right away, and end it all eventually. It has to come to an end. But people they rely on the government as their, that's the only help that people will get, they think. So I don't know, maybe explaining it in a better way and showing them that there's more than the government.
Right. And I think I know you guys are really involved with Liberty Memes, and they do a lot of that. And there are other groups doing that as well, but that, if we want to help people and we want to show people we'll do this, then I think it does take leading by example in that way and sort of being involved. I have a friend in town here who runs a charity called Laundry Love, and every week or every couple weeks, maybe once a month, I can't remember if it's once or twice a month, but they provide washing machines at a laundromat available for low income and homeless people to do their laundry, and then they have a meal together. Yeah, it's really cool because if you're part of the working poor or you're homeless and you're trying to work your way out of that, it's really difficult to go to a job interview and with dirty clothes and everything.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the main things is leading by example. I don't have a drink counter, y'all, just so you know.
That's fine.
My show, I don't have
hear
a
us
drink.
cracking that. This is only number 2.
I tried to figure out a way to get our whole background going on behind me, but I would have lost frame rates, and I didn't think it was worth it.
Right. So another thing you guys do is you are homeschoolers, like myself.
Yes.
I almost graduated this year.
Finally.
Year.
I had to hold
grab that brass ring, my friend. So when did you start homeschooling? Were you homeschooling before you became libertarians, or was this after?
The idea of it kind of went hand in hand. It was just like a general mistrust of public schooling and the city schools and stuff like that, the public schools in our area and stuff like that. We'd looked at Montessori and private schools and stuff like that, and if there was another route, where it just wasn't public school, we were thinking of that, but none of that panned out. So we're like, we'll just do it ourselves. Plus, Mary's really good at that kind of.
Oh, you're sweet.
Yeah, stuff. You're a good teacher. She's good at clerical work. She's very enthusiastic.
It's, what, I think when we had David, and he was 1, so that was 2010 that he turned 1 year old, and I remember just being at the kitchen table, like Googling things on the laptop, like, Dave, we cannot send our kids to school, like we live in the city right now, and I went to public schools in the city from 6th to 12th grade, and It was
Still
getting
have
more
PTSD.
populated in the schools as the years went on, and getting a little more rough, just because they were cramming so many kids into the classrooms in the hallways. But I thought also, I don't want my kids to just sit there for 8 hours. I mean, that's a long time to just sit when there's all this life going on outside of that classroom. So even when we had considered private school, it's still, for me, it was like the indoctrination, what they would be learning. It was not, especially once we heard about Ron Paul, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
Yeah. I think, and according to where you live, like, it's not the fact that, like, I know a lot of people feel guilty as libertarians, like, if they don't homeschool, I know I don't homeschool, because I've had people sort of say that to me, like, as if I'm judging them because they don't homeschool.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
We're blessed.
Yeah. And where I live, the schools are actually, they're according to themselves, right? Because they grade themselves according to the state. They're pretty good, and they are. Like, I have friends who have kids in public school, and the schools here are good. I don't live in the inner city where those kids get totally gypped generally, but for me, part of that, like, my son wanted to go back to public school this year. He's a junior in high school, and I thought, if he hasn't have libertarianism in his heart by now, in his life and every cell of his body, I've just failed, and he's going to have to figure out life for himself. But I'm sending my little one off to the indoctrination camps, and that's really, it's the whole system of it, and not just the fact that maybe they're not getting, say the school you're in doesn't have a whole bunch of indoctrination, which is hard to do, not to do, get your kids exposed to.
Yeah.
But just the fact that they're sitting there and they have to sit still and they have to be quiet and they have to jump when the bell rings, and their concentration is interrupted by that, and they don't get to say how long they're doing a subject. Like, those things are not the best. But also, I as a libertarian, I want to end the state. I want to bring the Leviathan down, and one of the best things we can do is to stop legitimizing it that way. So I don't judge people. I know it's scary. I mean, was it scary for you when you started homeschooling? Because it was terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Because you don't look at it like 1 year at a time or anything like that. When you're talking about homeschooling before you ever started, you're just like, first grade or kindergarten to graduation.
Yeah.
Right.
How am I going to do this?
Yeah.
What am I that I'm going to give this education?
I failed geometry. How am I going to teach that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't. You just get somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of the internet. But I want to say real quick, just to share with you, I know how you feel when people say, like, oh, well, I send my kids to public school, and I'm just like, me sharing that I homeschool is not to put anyone down at all, ever, ever, ever.
Right.
Like, I just share my experience, and if you're interested in it, then I will share with you what we do and how it's not hard. I mean, it's time consuming, yes, because you're with your kids 24 hours a day, but it's not, and there are hard days. It's not like every day is happy go lucky and we're running through a field, and rolling in grass. But there's moments where, like, your kid starts reading and spelling, and you're like, dude,
Yeah, but you got to make them do stuff they don't want to do.
Yeah, but it's awesome because, like, David my mom's like, wow, he just reads so well, and look at it, and I'm like, I know,
don't know how that happened.
I'm so excited. Like,
I had a hand in that.
I was a part of that, I really was a part of that, but
yeah,
it's definitely worth looking into, and I always tell people it's not as hard as you think it is. It's not, it's not 8 to 3,
right?
Monday through Friday. It's not anything like that. So, but I will never judge anyone for doing what they do, whatever.
They have to, or what they think is right.
Exactly.
Right. I know. Exactly. I think the best way to encourage people to do it is just to be an example of doing that. And I don't know, for me, when people try to shame me about something I'm not doing or doing, I just generally buck the system there. I'm like, well, F you. I don't, for me. Yeah. And so I know people are doing the best they can, and hopefully our kids' generation, there will be more people homeschooling, because they're, I sort of see it as, it's not like I'm a trailblazer or anything. People were already homeschooling before we started, but we're helping to delegitimize the public school system even more. And so the more people that can do that, the better. And I libertarianism isn't the only reason that I homeschool. I genuinely think that my kids are better off for it.
Yeah.
But like this year, I send my daughter to a co-op. Like, we did unschooling with her at first, and I was amazed. She taught herself to read. Like, I couldn't even take credit for that.
That's some of the stuff. I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
remember when
Yeah,
David
it's
was doing
amazing.
multiplication? I'm just like, where did he learn this? He's doing like all this math that I had no idea he had any concept of.
It's amazing. And the like, my daughter, she'll just, or my son even, they'll go and just pick something up and start learning it. And like, my son taught himself to play the guitar, and he's actually getting quite good. But we bought him a guitar like a few years before he actually got, like, he said he wanted one, and so I got him one for his birthday or whatever. And then he sort of lost interest. But then when that desire was there again, he picked it back up, and he's continued, and he's quite good now. So I think those influences and the time to do that, like, I even in high school, I didn't have a lot of time to do the things I wanted to do always. I had to work and stuff. But my son, because he does work now, but he also, because we homeschool, he has time to do the things he's interested in, which are really important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that you just have a lot more time to be like what the real world is going to be like when you're an adult. Like, you work, but you also have free time and time to put into other things that you're interested in. So I just really I would like to encourage people to homeschool if they can, or like, I'm doing a co-op now. So 2 days a week, 2.5 days, Friday's more like a play day, but my daughter goes to school for a few hours, and her little co-op, and they have a little curriculum, and it's fun. It's like a partnership. It's a partnership with your kids and with this little school that we're doing. So
I love that.
It's kind of
you need a little structure too. It's like just a little taste of like having a job. Well, you're gonna have to get up this time, or unless they're all little.
But I don't want to. Yeah, it's fun to watch them grow and see them really build drive into them. Like, I think people often don't get the difference between desire and drive, whereas desire is like, I want a pony, and then you get the guitar. I want a guitar, and you get the guitar, and it sits, and you're like griping at them. Well, you never even played the dang guitar, But then drive is when I want a pony, and they figure out how to get there, and how to clean the stables, and what they need to do to have time to ride, and figure out the money to do it, whatever, or take their time to learn how to, play the guitar, and go on YouTube and find apps that help and all that stuff like he did. That's drive, and that's really what we want to build into kids, not just desire for things, because
there's a lot of
that.
And I mean, if you look at it, even with statists, they're constantly, I believe in individual rights, and then you talk to them about real individual rights, like, hey, it's not okay to put a gun to someone's head to pay for your welfare program. Well, why do you hate children? And it's sort of the same thing. They have this desire for things that they didn't actually want to work for or do anything about, and had no drive to figure out how to fund it themselves. So so what do you guys, I know you work and outside the home, and Mary, you're a mom and got a lot going. I don't think you don't have a outside the home job.
I don't.
Do you at this point? Okay. So, but as I know, that's a lot of work. And so how do you guys find balance? Have you found that a secret to balancing your life? Because I need this.
It feels pretty insane.
Yeah.
I mean, and really, it's like I work, and then I come home and I help out, here, and then I say, how do you not go insane every day? I thank her for her sanity, because, like she said, home all day, 3 kids, can't just load them onto a bus and, do some dishes.
Although I want to, like, I see the bus go by, and I'm like, well, you forgot 3. Only once in a while.
Some days, yeah.
But yeah, and then we started this Liberty memes, just being on Facebook alone takes up time, we spend too much time on our phones. But then we started a live stream show accidentally that got out of control. So now we're spending like a few hours a week at least doing that.
Right.
And so it feels like even when we get, like, my parents come over and we have a date night, which we used to do every week, but it just sometimes to me it just seems like it's something else I have to get out of the way so I can get to the to task or whatever.
Right.
But not to me though, because I want to get out and have some time alone. Yeah.
But it's hard to disengage from all the other aspects of life. And
but we try to I mean, we want to get the kids to bed at a better time now, and
Yeah.
start more of a routine where we had a routine. Like, I think when we had like one kid and then maybe two kids, and then you get the third one and it just, throws a wrench and everything. And they were so close together in age. And then it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
He got put on a weird shift for work and the whole routine went down the tubes. But we're trying to work back towards that. So
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
find I often condemn myself for, like, I'm balance is not my long suit, and organization is not really my long suit. So I find myself like condemning myself that I didn't, oh, you're never, you're always playing catch up. You're always doing this. And I have to remind myself that it's like, flying a plane. Like, nobody flies a plane straight from Boston to Dallas, right? It's a constant course of corrections. That's what flying a plane is you put it up in the air and then you're correcting the whole time. So it's sort of what life is like too. And I think
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, parents
you never put it on cruise control, I don't think. Life,
I wish you could.
I know,
That's
right?
putting your kids in front of the TV or sending them to school like for 8 hours a day just because you don't want them around. I'm not saying that people send their kids to school because they don't want them around. Just a disclaimer. Some people do, maybe, but I'm not saying that you are if you do that.
And some of my friends have mentioned to me where, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm losing my mind, and they're like, you need to just send your kids to school. And I'm like, I cannot. I cannot. I feel this is what I'm supposed to do. So I have to find another way to stay sane.
Right. And why is that I think that that's the answer for people, because we're so used to not, like, society, even at my grandmother's day, so not that long ago, families were together a lot more. They didn't necessarily go off to school and all the time, and through high school and college and all that. Like, and you had the support of your close family generally lived closer to you. And so like I grew up with sets of my grandparents, two sets of my grandparents living in the same little, like, one lived up the hill from the other. And so I could see them a lot. I could be sent there, like, go to your grandmother's, whatever. And my aunts and uncles were around, and, there was a lot more support. And so I think that that's part of it, as well as people have become more isolated, and due to, in part, to the state and its influence on people. And since we have to send our kids to school, that most people feel like you have to send your kids to school, so that your whole life starts to get, worked around school and the system, and people don't live as close to each other anymore. And so we've lost a lot of those community sort of helps that people used to have. And I don't know, I see a real benefit to that. And I think that Sun State, you would have a lot more of that, because people would need to rely on each other more. And I'm not saying it's wrong to move away from your family, but those things are, I can see why people lived the way they did at one point, because you did have to rely on each other.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything wrong with that. Yeah.
Grandkids are good for grandparents.
They are.
Yes. And that's
that's
why I moved back to Tennessee when I was pregnant with my son, because I wanted him to be around grandparents. And my parents are younger than his father's, and they live in this country, my parents. And so I really wanted them to have the benefit of that relationship, because I think it's really important for kids to have people who love them outside of mom and dad, and they know that the world is not, like, as much as we criticize, or I don't know about you guys, but as much as I criticize things going on, we have pretty good here in the United States, in a lot of ways. We're not necessarily, living under the kind of regime that we can't speak out. Like, I can actually speak against the government at this point and stuff. At this point,
we're fighting tooth and nail to keep it. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and so I wanted my kids to have the benefit of other people in their community that love them, and I think that's really important, those intergenerational friendships too. So let's see what else we've got here. What do you guys think is something? I remember when I was on your show before too. I think Mary had said, we don't know anything. We don't know
Yeah.
and I don't think you literally meant you don't know anything, but,
No, but yeah, ignorance is our strong suit.
yeah. But you guys are certainly both
I'm just
very
not
open.
fully informed. Yeah, I want to learn more
Yeah.
because I'm not very, I don't watch the news. I don't, not that there's anything good in the
Probably
news.
good for
but-
you. Yeah, it's better for you not to.
I haven't read a lot,
we don't read a lot.
and I'm not like listening to podcasts every day and learning a whole bunch. So I feel
Right.
that I don't know as much as other people. Obviously, when it comes to liberty and anarchy and all that kind of stuff, all I know is that I just want to be left alone. I don't want to pay taxes anymore. Let's just be nice to each other. Get off my property. I want my gun. That kind of stuff, which I think is important. But doing the show helps me learn so much because we bring people on, and that gives me a chance to. Ask more questions and not just getting to know the person, but learning,
learning from them. Yeah,
learning from them. So
a lot of people don't tune into our show to learn anything. Just our streams. It's more like
we like to have fun and hang
cut
out,
loose and hang out, and then
Yeah.
now we've started developing this Friday night stream. We're actually bringing on like people who know stuff. So it's kind of our thing is like, well, come on and let's learn together.
Right.
We're not going to talk above anybody in the audience. We're going to make our guests kind of dumb it down for us, and then feel smart and learn along with us.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I think that's part of the charm of what you guys are doing because, like, I had so much fun. I love, when I can, I haven't been able to lately, but to watch your show and just hang out because there is like a community atmosphere, and I think it's sort of transferred over from the Liberty Memes groups and I know when I was going through a rough time this year, many of you guys were like checking in on me and,
right.
Saying, hey, how are you doing today? Because y'all have like a million private chat groups outside Liberty Memes. So there's like just a million of them. But I think that's what we want, right? We are a marginalized group, right? There's like, as Alan Mosley of the Gold Standard always says, there's 17 libertarians in the country, right? So we're very small. Yeah. And we're so spread out. So it's really important that we get to have time together, a community together without, having to explain ourselves constantly. What, you're an anarchist? No, it's not like that. I don't have a Molotov cocktail or something. So I think that's a really important function that you guys are performing. And I certainly enjoy going on in there and kind of being mean in your streams.
We love when you come on the show, when you show up in the comment section. It's so exciting.
I love it because I feel like, and I don't know if it's always true, but I feel like sometimes when I put something that I know is particularly spicy that David's gonna like or something, like I make eye contact with him through the screen. Like I'll see him read. I think, oh, he just read my comment, and he'll look up, and I'm like, he's looking at me. I know it. But that's
to do that,
like they want to make me laugh when the guests on.
And
the crack.
Right, and I think it's really awesome because for one, people enjoy coming in and listening to what is going on, but also when you're having fun, you can learn a lot more from people, and it maybe disarms people a little bit, so they might catch more than they really are thinking they want to. So.
And people have their own little their own conversations in the chat.
Sometimes it totally is what's going on.
There's some really great stuff that has happened in the comment section before, where we were just talking to a guest and we're like, whoa, what is going on here? This is really cool to see,
it becomes
the
another
connections
chat.
and stuff. Yeah. But I love that. It's sort of like a little online encapsulation. Is that how I say that?
Encapsulation, yeah. Since I live in Appalachia. I'm trying to plan something. Alan, I think he spilled the beans on your show anyways about, I think it was your show or in Appalachia is something that we're trying to get going, an event.
Yes.
So
fun.
Maybe one of these days if we can ever get it going, we're both stay so busy, but it'd be fun. I think I'd like that. So what is the thing, like if you can say one thing that you've learned either from podcasting or homeschooling or doing this show or like the podcasts, what would you say is one nugget that you've learned about people, or even just, technical stuff? What is something you've learned you'd like people to know? Or from one of your guests? We know that a hot dog is not a sandwich, or is a sandwich. But Alan thinks it's not a sandwich.
Noodles, and chili.
Cereal is technically soup, if you ask me.
Yeah. Oh, that's what Celeste just
said. We already answered that before a comment even came up.
I mean, for me, it's just about making the connection with people. I love it so much, whether we have a guest on or we're just, reading the comments and we have no guest on, and we're just connecting strictly with the audience. I love it so much. I can't believe, we started doing this just hanging out on the couch, and just to get to know the Liberty Memes community a little bit better. Let's kind of meet in a way, even though it's across the internet, but let's get to know each other. And here we are doing that every Friday, and having guests on that, I mean, I can't believe sometimes. I
know you guys just had Connor Boyack on, which is really cool.
I was
insane.
I couldn't, my cheeks hurt.
We're all starstruck trying to talk to this guy, because we've had his books in our house forever,
Yeah. My daughter loves his books so much.
So fantastic. Yeah. And just getting to know, I feel like we're adding people to our family. Like every week we get to add people to our family. If there's somebody new in the comment section hanging out, and it's just like, and it's as long as they don't, say muffin blue line or whatever, Everyone loves.
Well, they'll say it once. They might not say it again.
Yeah.
Ben, what have you learned from Ben's badass friends?
Oh, yes.
Ben's badass friends are out there doing it.
Yeah.
We might be on here talking about it, though.
Yeah.
They're doing it.
They're actively out there.
Yeah. he must be in the Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah.
The people down there, dude, anybody who builds a guillotine is okay and takes it to the courthouse is good in my book. So.
I know, right? Oh my gosh.
You're not just putting up memes anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Doing memes.
And I think they, I was having dinner with a friend recently, and there was a bunch of cops in the thing. I'm like, why are there a bunch of cops here? Are you trolling me or something? He's like, no, I didn't do this on purpose. They're having this coffee with a cop thing. When I'm having dinner there, I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, well, we'll just, move slowly and eat your food. And so one comes over and is like trying to hand me their little brochure, and I wouldn't take it from him, for one. And then I talked to him about civil asset forfeiture, and what it was is they're out there doing outreach to the community, and they want to, we're the good guys, and we want to get to know you before we shoot you and things like that. So,
it's more intimate.
It's more intimate when I have to call 911, if I do. So yeah, and I think, after he left, because I wasn't friendly, but I wasn't rude. I asked him questions, and I said, some things to him about civil asset forfeiture and, people's rights. And when he left, my friend was like, wow, you really, you don't care about talking to them. I'm like, no, it's not that. Like, for one, I'm not on the side of the road where he's already got his, weapon drawn on me or something. Like, yeah. I'm not in that situation where I've done something, that they consider wrong. And so right. I'm just going to try and get out of that. But I think every public person, everyone who works for the government should feel a little bit afraid of you. Like, you are their boss, and they should feel like they're under scrutiny 24/7 because, damn it, you work for with stolen money, from me.
Your paycheck.
Right. And
the boogaloo's boiling under the surface, and they got to know that. It's always
That's
there.
Right. I'm ready. The boogaloo can be set off any moment. You never know. Yeah, so I think that's true. They should. I don't know how we got on cops. I always talk about cops, but I think they should be like. They always complain about wearing the body cams. Like, we can't do it. Right, you can't do anything. You shouldn't be doing shit. You should be sitting there waiting for the fire department.
Yeah, don't go looking for fires.
Right,
don't go.
I think they should. feel a little uneasy when they talk to you. Like, I know what my rights are, and I know that you are a friggin' liar. I know that you will lie to cover up for this guy or that. Like, it's been proven. Like, okay, so one of my best friends is a cop. And it makes for some interesting conversations. But I didn't always feel this way. Like, I used to feel like, oh, this is, a few bad apples spoil the bunch, right? It's a reputation, but it's systemic, and I see that now. And so I guess that's why people, I get where people are coming from when they say the things, well, they're not all bad or whatever. But if they weren't all bad and they were all doing their jobs, that they swore to uphold the Constitution, there would be a lot more, or let's say no politicians there, because they'd all be arrested because they've all violated their Constitution that they love so much. So anyways, cop rant over.
I wanted to answer the question that originally was asked, is like what we learned from this is,
yes, I'm sorry. I got off on
a lot of times, libertarians are notoriously argumentative, especially with each other. The whole iron sharpens iron, and we'll beat each other down until we figure out exactly what the proper philosophy is of a certain situation. And I think we need to tone that down when talking to people outside of libertarianism. Don't just because we are battle-hardened arguers and debaters,
right.
And we need to just pull that back a little bit when we're talking to normal status, just normie people, and try to connect with them. Like Mary said, they connect with people. And just slip that knowledge in there and those little things. It's almost like memes, just get those little ideas into their brains and let it bounce around and let them work with it. But don't push them so hard that they're just resisting for the sake of resisting, for protecting their own ego and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, everybody wants to save face.
Yeah. You understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But here's what I found. Here's what I believe. Here's what makes sense to me,
Right.
Well, that was the beauty of sharing things like from Liberty memes, back when the original page was still around before the Great Zuckening, and when Facebook would, you would share something and it would actually get reach, and people would see it. But things get hidden now and it's out of control. But Dave would share things and he would notice people from work and it would say so-and-so shared from Anarchy Ball now, or so-and-so's following Liberty memes. And it's just like, oh my gosh, the memes are working. Those little tiny seeds are being planted,
Yeah, they do. And I think one of the reasons memes are so great is because it's not it might be a confrontational thing, but it's not necessarily you saying, it's one removed from you actually saying, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Right. You just kind of hint towards that.
Yeah. So, and I think you're right that sometimes we forget that what the things that we believe to normies is really radical. Like, taxation is theft is a radical thing to say to a lot of people. Their whole idea of government and having a good life is built on the idea that your fair share of taxes is what pays for all this good stuff that we have. And so, we can really, I take yoga, and my teacher the other day was saying, I have to be really careful because sometimes I'll speak someone's truth and walk away and they're devastated on the floor and they just, in the fetal position, their whole world just got collapsed, everything that they thought. And then I'm down the street, having a good time. She's like, I got to be careful. And I think there's some truth in that, we have to, I'm all about shaming shameful opinions. If your opinion is that all immigrants should be shot at the border, then you can go fucking kill yourself and die. I don't care about you. That's shameful. You're talking about murdering people. That's shameful. Right. But, saying, I think you should stand for the flag. So
should you?
We maybe should show a little compassion, like you're saying. And remember, we were, I was a total neocon. Oh my gosh.
We were there.
And everybody in our group we've talked to is that, where did you come from? How did you? And a lot of the people are like, well, I was here, and then this person said something, or this thing, hit
That's
me.
my favorite thing, is to find out where, tell me where you came from and how did you get to Liberty, because I don't think a lot of people were born into a libertarian mindset. You know what I mean? Right. I mean, maybe a few, but it's going to be a lot more now. I mean, our kids are going to grow up and they're, what I mean? But
we got to tone them down a little sometimes.
I know.
I love that though.
Right?
I do. I
Kids
love
will
Buddy,
it
you're
say
so
too
much.
young to be on the list. Just call me.
Because it gives me hope. It gives me hope that that we saw the light,
Mhm.
that other people too. It's just going to take some time, or the right message, or the right
Yeah.
moment to just click for them, you know. So
And that's the whole point of cultural change, right? Is that it doesn't happen necessarily overnight, but sticking to those principles, talking about them, and giving people access to them is really
Yeah.
important. And it does change people. Like I love that too when you see like, oh, so and so is now sharing your stuff, or when they were fighting you before, or somebody. I've had several people contact me and say, oh my goodness, I thought you were crazy when I first started listening to you. And then now I see why, cops are a problem. Like, I get it.
that's
So,
so great. And to
uh,
know that, and then that person's going to go and plant a seed somewhere too, and then that seed is going to bloom, and then so on and so
Each one
on.
reach one.
Yeah, each one reach one. So
yeah, I can't say
that's
that
an old
anymore.
Amway thing.
Yeah, it's an old ministry thing from my former
okay.
religious group too. They used to say that, and I
That was
just
from our
can't say
Amway
that
days.
anymore.
We learned a lot. I have to say that we did.
So we were both in cults.
We found a new one though.
We found a new one,
This
though.
one's pretty cool. We have pizza on Fridays.
Right, that's true. I mean, some people have said to me before, libertarianism is a religion, and I'm like, I sort of see that. I see what you mean by that. Like, it's not, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Stand for the cloth and
Yeah.
put your
Well,
hand over your heart.
that's a
and,
dangerous
like,
one
that's
too, though.
it.
You
right.
rip on
It's
their-
the most
their-
dangerous superstition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. At least we're not pointing guns at anybody and saying live free or die.
Yeah.
I mean,
Literally.
Choose freedom.
yeah, you will choose. So, all right, guys. Well, I guess we're coming to the end of our time together. It's always good to hang out with you guys, and usually one of the funnest times I remember having in the past few years was our little chat party that we did with a few other people. It was so much fun. So we'll have to do one of those again sometime. But give your links to what you guys have, your Liberty Late Night show. Where can people find you?
Yeah, mostly Facebook's where we operate.
YouTube.
We have a YouTube. I upload just the interviews when we have people on. I upload to YouTube. Facebook, just look for Liberty Late Night. I don't know if I think it's Lib Late Night. Facebook.com/Lib Late Night.
Is it on Twitter?
We're on Twitter. I can't remember that one.
Just for stuff, I mean, we're just trying to be, we're trying to be on all the social media,
Liberty Memes Admin
Oh my
1 is
gosh,
here.
Admin 1 just showed
Peter
up
Gay.
into the.
He can't.
How about that?
But he can.
How about that?
He's
Hi, Peter.
watching. We
watching
miss
over
you.
us.
We miss you. Thank Facebook for another
Sucking
great
him again.
loss there. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so Facebook, Liberty Late Night. We got the YouTubes. I like to say the YouTubes because then I sound like an old person.
Right.
Twitter, and we do have a Patreon.
Yeah. /Liberty Late Night.
We have our LLN community, but you can get access to that by being part of the Liberty Memes community group. So
That's kind of how we start because that's where we operated. So we're like,
Yeah.
there's no
Right.
point being in this group if we're not
Yeah.
there. So we're kind of navigating these waters as we go more public with our
yeah,
show.
yeah, we are the official
It
live
takes
stream
time.
of Liberty Late Night, or
Oh,
not
Liberty
Liberty Memes.
Crowned.
We have been crowned, yes, by dear
Well,
leader.
Right. Your dear leader, the cult leader. Yeah.
Yes.
He's got
I'm always late to the party on most of those things. Like I hear about it later. I'm like, what the frig are people?
Oh yeah, the cult memes are big right now.
Yeah.
I'll see it after, and I'm always like, I don't get some of the hate that
Weird.
comes
Oh,
that way from people doing something voluntarily. But that's just me, I don't know. So, anyways,
Into it.
right.
Yeah. Thank you for having us on, Sherry. This was an honor to be on your show.
Yeah,
Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
Thanks for
So
coming on. I needed to do something fun to get back into the swing of things and get back into serious mode. Sometimes, some days I just get tired of it all and I'm ready to quit doing everything, but
Oh yeah, I almost
Oh.
gotta have
lost it.
fun.
But
You're right.
Dave,
That's the technical issues. I'm just like, why am I even doing this? Let's put it
Right.
all in a box. Cancel the Patreon. Get rid of it,
Right,
and
done. I don't need this to survive. Click. Yeah. But I always end up coming back. So, Well, guys, that's the end of our show this evening. If you'd like to support the Sherry Voluntary Show and you appreciate the content that I'm trying to provide for you, you can go to Patreon/Sherry Voluntary and support the show there, and that would be much appreciated. Until next week, peace out.